The movie begins on a stormy night as thunder roars and rain lashes against the windows of a decrepit warehouse. A group of strangers awaken inside, each chained to their chairs with no memory of how they arrived there. Panic sets in as they try to scream for help, but the silence of the place swallows their voices. Suddenly, a chilling recording plays through hidden speakers, introducing them to the game. It's not Jigsaw's voice, but someone claiming to be his disciple, here to finish what was started. Fear grips them as they realize their lives are in the hands of a merciless mastermind. The captives are faced with their first trial, a row of pendulums swinging above their heads, slowly lowering with every tick. They are told they must confess their darkest sins to stop the blades. Some start shouting truths immediately, while others hesitate, terrified of admitting what they've hidden. The sound of the pendulums scraping closer creates unbearable tension. Sweat drips down their faces as they decide between shame or death. It becomes clear that confession is survival, and silence is execution. One man, stubborn and convinced of his innocence, refuses to speak. His arrogance seals his fate as the pendulum crashes down, silencing him forever. The survivors scream in horror, realizing the trap is merciless and absolute. This gruesome death sets the tone for what awaits them ahead. Now, fear and suspicion spread like wildfire among the group. Nobody can trust each other, and everyone wonders if they'll be next. Their survival depends on honesty, but honesty comes with its own torment. They're herded into a long, narrow corridor lined with cages. Inside each cage are tools that could unlock the next door, but they're booby-trapped. The rule is simple. One must sacrifice their body to retrieve a key. A woman steps forward bravely, forcing her arms through coils of barbed wire to grab the item. Her screams echo through the corridor as blood pours from her cuts, but she manages to pull out the key. The group is shaken, realizing the price of progress is flesh. The voice explains that every wound represents accountability. This isn't random torture, it's judgment. A man begins piecing things together, realizing he recognizes some of the faces. He recalls past legal cases and news reports, connecting each person to hidden crimes. Fraud, bribery, cover-ups, and acts of violence, all ignored or buried by the system. They are not innocent victims but selected sinners chosen for their wrongdoing. The revelation chills the group to its core. Their next chamber holds a pool slowly filling with acid. The only way forward is to pull a lever submerged deep within it. As the liquid rises toward their feet, panic overtakes the group. No one wants to make the sacrifice, knowing the acid will eat away their flesh. Finally, a desperate young man plunges his arms in, screaming as his skin burns away. He somehow manages to pull the lever, opening the door. His bravery leaves him scarred for life, but alive. Suspicion grows heavier as paranoia eats at them. One man accuses another of working with the disciple, pointing out his calmness. The group nearly erupts into violence as arguments explode in the darkness. The voice interrupts, reminding them that division ensures failure. Yet, despite the warning, mistrust remains. Small alliances begin forming, with whispers and promises exchanged in the shadows. Everyone knows that betrayal could mean death, but cooperation may also kill them. The next trial is more psychological than physical. Each person is forced to sit in front of a mirror showing distorted reflections of their crimes. The twisted images depict them at their worst: drunk, abusive, murderous, corrupt. A man breaks down sobbing as he sees himself killing in a drunk driving accident, finally confessing the truth. Another refuses to face it, smashing the mirror in rage. His defiance triggers a trap, stabbing him with hidden spikes. The survivors watch in silence, horrified at how truth and denial both bring punishment. Exhaustion and despair weigh heavily as they move to the next stage. This test demands loyalty. Two people are shackled together, and only one can escape by severing the other's hand. The pair sob, begging for another way, but there is none. Time ticks down as desperation consumes them. Finally, one man takes the blade and severs his partner's hand, crying in anguish as he frees himself. The screams haunt the group as they realize the disciple is forcing them into impossible choices. Shaking and bloodied, the group enters a room filled with screens. Each screen plays recordings of their past, showing them lying, cheating, or hurting others. The victims' faces flash across the screens, reminding them of the lives they destroyed. The mastermind's surveillance is terrifyingly precise. Every detail of their sins is recorded. They realize they've been watched for years, every secret uncovered. The guilt crashes down on them, breaking what little hope they had left. The group continues, but more lives are claimed. A woman guilty of covering up a violent crime for money is forced to crawl through a tunnel of blades. Her body doesn't make it to the other side. Another man, who once exploited workers for profit, refuses to cooperate and dies crushed by machinery. Every trap mirrors their sins, tailored perfectly to their crimes. There is no escape, no bargaining, only brutal justice. The dwindling survivors are led to a massive scale in the next room. A voice tells them the door will open only when the scale is balanced with flesh. They panic, realizing it requires collective sacrifice. Arguments break out, as no one wants to bleed for others. Eventually, they begin cutting into their own bodies, screaming in agony. Piece by piece, they pile their flesh onto the scale until it tips. The door unlocks, but their humanity is left behind. Barely conscious, they stumble into a final chamber where a masked figure waits. He removes the mask, revealing himself as the disciple. His face shows scars, reminders of his own suffering at the hands of their corruption. He explains that he was a victim of the very system they manipulated. This game is not revenge but continuation of Jigsaw's philosophy, justice through pain. His calm words strike harder than any trap. The disciple tells them survival was never the true reward. The real lesson lies in the scars they now carry. Pain, he says, is only temporary, but understanding lasts forever. He wants them to live with the weight of their sins, marked permanently as reminders of who they truly are. The remaining survivors collapse in tears, broken not only in body but in soul. They realize their freedom, if it comes, will never be true. The final twist shatters what little trust they had left. One of the survivors wasn't brought here to die but to be tested as a successor. Their choices throughout the game were being watched more carefully than the rest. Shock spreads through the group as they realize betrayal has been brewing from the start. Whispers and accusations turn into screams, but the truth is unavoidable. One of them was meant to inherit the legacy. The chosen one is revealed to be the man who plunged his arms into the acid without hesitation. The disciple praises him for showing sacrifice, determination, and strength under pressure. Horrified, he resists the idea, saying he wants nothing to do with Jigsaw's legacy. But the disciple insists there's no choice. Once chosen, the burden cannot be refused. His tears show that survival has become a curse. At last, the survivors are released into the night. They collapse in the mud outside the warehouse, sirens blaring in the distance. Police arrive, but the disciple has vanished, leaving no trace. Broken and scarred, the survivors cling to life, but they know they'll never heal. Every scar is a reminder of the pain, the choices, and the sins they can never escape. Freedom feels like another prison. The chosen survivor returns home, trembling, unable to sleep. Haunted by screams and visions, he finds a box waiting at his doorstep. Inside rests the puppet and a note reading, "The game never ends." His hands shake uncontrollably as he drops to his knees. The burden of the legacy weighs heavier than any trap. His life is no longer his own. The film ends with the disciple watching from a distance, hidden in the shadows. He whispers to himself that Jigsaw's philosophy will live forever. As the screen fades to black, the iconic laugh of the puppet echoes, reminding the audience that death is not the end. Fear and justice will always return. The legacy is alive, and the game has only just begun.